Hey guys, and welcome back to your favorite chess YouTube channel. For today's video, we are going to learn 5 middle game ideas that every chess player must know. And stick around because the last two positions is very important to any chess player. First, we are going to learn how to play when it's opposite side castling position. So white goes d4, knight f6, we will skip through the opening and we'll start from here, after black castled king side and white castled queen side. So in these positions, you want to go and try to build a huge attack on the king side, and black will do the same on the queen side, right? Because what makes it interesting in the opposite side castling that you can throw pawns in your opponent king without really being worrying of your own king safety. So in this position, black goes c6, just trying to go b5 and b4 and maybe win this pawn. We going to go bishop to h6. Of course, if black makes this trade, then we are going to be very happy thanks to some knight f3, knight g5 and h4, h5, and white play is going to be easy. So it's not really challenging for black to take. And why we are going to go bishop h6? Because if in this position, if we go h4, then after black plays h5, then black is kind of blocking the attack a little bit. We don't do that, and we play bishop h6 first to block the h pawn from moving, and we are going to go h4, h5 in next moves. So black's trying to make counterplay also with going pawn to b5, just trying to go b4 and knight takes e4. In this position, black is trying to remove our knight, of course, and win the pawn on e4. So you might be thinking to go bishop d3 is a move. Also f3 is a move. So how to decide whether the best move is bishop d3 or f3? So if we go bishop d3 here, the bishop is really blocked here, and if it opens up, like in a good world, like let's say black goes queen a5, right, putting pressure on the a2 pawn, and in a nice world you get to play e5 and open up this diagonal, then this diagonal is not really open. The white bishop can't really attack black in this such of positions. So hence why f3 is going to be the best move, just preventing the idea of black going to b4 and winning the pawn on e4. And maybe in the future black might go knight g4, like for example, if you didn't go f3, like after something like bishop to d3, then black can take and white takes and going knight to g4, and after the queen drops back to d2 to defend the f2 square, then black can play h5 and pretty much black is fine over here. So hence why bishop d3 is not really a good move and f3 is the best move. So black is trying to create an attack, right? So hence why he goes queen a5, putting pressure on the a2 pawn and threatening to still go b4, and when this knight moves, then the pawn on a2 is hanging. So here you are not in rush to go h4, h5, like you wanna just take a deep breath and try to defend and then carry on the attack with h4, h5. So in this position, black's trying to go b4 as I said before. So we go king b1, just defending this pawn, and the knight, if it gets kicked at any time with b4, then it's going to go to e2, which can help the defending the king on c1. So a possible variation could be b4, knight to e2, and bishop to e6, trying to target the a2 pawn. And now we're just going to go knight c1, just putting this knight here, defending this pawn. Also a3 is possible, but you don't want to make weaknesses on your queen side. So you want to just make sure that black have no counterplay at all with this move knight to c1. And now you will carry on the attack. So queen b6 is played by black, trying to go a5, a4, and a3 maybe, just trying to attack, right? And now h4 from white, just trying to go h5. So so a5 is a move for black. And now after h5, just keep in mind this idea. If black gets greedy and decided to grab the pawn on h5, then after rook takes h5, g takes h5, queen g5, actually just the checkmate is unstoppable here. So black can't really grab the pawn. So don't be worried here to just throw the pawn on your opponent king. So black is going also a4, just trying to build some attack. And now I want you to remember this idea, which is when you open the H file for your rook, like let's say bishop takes g7, king takes g7, then after queen h6, king g8, then queen h8 is actually checkmate. So black can't really take with the H pawn and open up the H file. So hence why black takes with the F pawn. But right now, after bishop takes g7, king takes g7, then you go queen h6, and after king g8, you just go e5, removing this knight from defending h7. Like let's say, for example, takes, and now this knight needs to move, and after it moves, let's say knight to d5, then queen h7 is actually checkmate. So you can see how the attack is overwhelming for white, but just make sure before you attack that you are not the one who is getting attacked. So in this position, white is ahead in development, right? White king is castled, black king is still at the center, and the black last move was b6, just trying to go bishop to b7. And now I want you as white to figure out how to attack this black king. So first move to come in mind is knight to g5, just going after this pawn on f7, and there is no really defense, like something like queen e7 will immediately lose after knight takes f7. Knight to h6 is the only move for black, just trying to defend the f7 square, and now you want to take on h5, just applying more pressure on your opponent. Okay. So black's most logical move is to just castle here, just defend it to add more one defender to f7 square. And now you will play the silent move, queen to g6, and the lady will have to give away itself, and after takes, then still black can take the queen, of course, because of the pin. Like, yeah, the computer won't let me do it. So after takes, then going something like knight to e7, then after just bishop takes e7, and drop your queen back to g3, hitting e5, then white is 90% winning, of course, because white is up a queen. So in this position, like, you want to see white having two knights. So whenever you're having two knights, you need to find out where is the outpost, the weak squares for the black territory to jump on. So you will figure out what's the outpost first, you might ask. Is a square that no pawns for black can attack. Like, for example, this square on e6, there is no f pawn or no d pawn can defend the square on e6, right? And we will find out that d5 is also a weakness. So the first move for white is going to be knight to f4, and from there white is pretty much for choice. Right, so after something like bishop to e7 for black, then after knight to e6 hitting the queen will have to drop to b8, right? It's the only squares, and because the d8 is controlled by the knight also. And now you want to see that the b5 square is weak. So how to get to b5? And its only square really possible is a3 to jump to b5, and this knight is on d2. And we'll figure out that the move is knight to b1, just to go knight to e3 and knight to b5, like creating a plan, right? Black best try is to go something like knight to f8, but here you don't really want to trade pieces because you are up space, and and white have more space. So when you have more space, I won't recommend you trading any piece down, because the black pieces is really crammed over this three ranks. But you can see white is the one who is pushing forward in this position. So I will just play something like knight to f4 over here, and maybe just double up on the e5, and still go knight to a3 and knight to b5, and white is the one for choice here. Let's see the next game. So in this game, we want to learn about the positional play, right? And I told you in the first of the video that the last two is very important. And why, you might ask, why is they are very important? Because they are the positional ones. Like, you love tactics, you love throwing punches on your opponent, and I completely understand that. But sometimes you just want to keep grinding the game until you win. So this game starts with the Catalan opening. So you might ask, what's the Catalan opening? Of course, it's after white goes g3, which gives away the c4 pawn. But on the other hand, white gets activity from h1 to its diagonal. Okay, so after d takes c4, bishop to g2, c6, trying to block the diagonal, of course. Knight to f3, knight to d7, a4. And after castling, queen to c2, rook to e8, bishop to f4, of course controlling e5, and never really allowing black to go e5 himself. And after knight to d5, black is hitting the dark square bishop and the knight on c3. So of course white does not want to trade because white sacrificed a pawn before, and there is huge potential for these pieces to attack the black pieces. So black goes b5, like just trying to defend the c4 pawn, and now white plays knight to g5, going after the h7 pawn. Black plays knight f8, just defending the h7 square, and now knight to e5. Just banging with the f7 pawn and opening up the diagonal for the light square bishop.
No, that they can't go f6 because knight takes e6, tied the queen, and knight takes b4 wins for white.
It takes f4, g takes f4, queen, bishop to b7 was played. Like black is trying to challenge this diagonal, but the diagonal is always with white. After knight to c6, queen to d6 was played, hitting this knight, hitting this pawn. If the knight moves, then the bishop gets traded, and if the bishop gets traded, then black is completely fine. So after a takes b5, just defending this knight, like, because yeah, if the knight moves, then white just gave up the whole advantage he has. So after queen takes f4, knight to h3 was played, queen h4, just trying to keep pressure on the king side from black, and now after e4, like, you can evaluate this position as a loss for black. You might be thinking like, why black is not down any material, right? But it's strategically speaking, this pawn on c4 is a gunner. This bishop is really not good. Like after something like knight to a5, hitting this bishop and kick it away from this diagonal, then white is strategically winning because the positions of their pieces. So after bishop to d6, black is trying to put pressure on the h2 pawn, of course, but now knight to a5 was played, hitting the bishop on b7 and kicking it away from the diagonal, right? Because it can't really access any square on this diagonal. So after bishop to c8, first rook b8 was played and not bishop c8, and now after knight takes b7, rook takes b7, e5, then white is just winning material here and pretty much winning the game thanks to this beast on g2. The last one is going to be really important. This game is Garry Kasparov playing as the black pieces and Tivakov Sergey as white pieces. And in this game, we are going to see the power of the two bishops. Like, of course, Garry Kasparov is one of the very strongest chess player in all time of history of chess, and he likes to play the Sicilian defense. We will not really dive into theory, but in this position, Garry Kasparov played knight to a5, just intending to take the light square bishop and play for the advantage of the bishop pair. Black goes bishop to e3, b6, like Kasparov saying, like, I can take it anytime, why not to just wait and play bishop b6 and play b6, bishop b7 before taking this bishop. So bishop f2 was played, bishop b7, bishop h4, pinning this knight, trying to put pressure on black. But of course now Garry takes the bishop on b3, and after a takes b3, by the way, there is a strategical point over here that if you have two capture, one is away from center, like c takes b3, this is not good because it leaves away the d3 pawn isolated and backwards. But of course you want to take towards the center, and going a takes b3, queen to d7 was played, queen g3. White is trying to build some attack on the king side over here, maybe trying to go f5, maybe trying to go bishop to g5 and queen h4 and bishop h6, and just trying to checkmate black, right? But Garry Kasparov played a really nice move over here, which is f5. f5 is very energetic move. In the first place, it's trying to open up the diagonal for this bishop, and in the second place, it blocks the f5 pawn from moving from white, so white can't really go f5. So in this position, rook a e1 was played, knight to c6 was played. Gary is trying to reroute this knight to d4 and maybe get rid of this both knights, so the two bishops can only play on the board. So e takes f5 was played. White's trying to open up the center over here. And now g takes f5. You might be thinking why we are not taking with the e pawn and keeping our king safe, because of course it leaves the square on d5 really weak, and now the white pieces starts to play again, and there is nothing really to do to remove this knight from d5. So g takes f5 is the best move over here, just to, of course, taking towards the center, as I told you before on knight takes b3. I told you a or c. Of course, this is the same one because it takes towards the center. It controls the a4 square, and also it opens up the g file, which we will going to see that how much that affect in the game. So rook e2 was played. White is trying to double up and maybe and argue that e6 pawn is a weakness. So rook e8 was played, just defending this pawn. Rook e1, and now king h8. Black is trying to go rook g8 and try to exploit that this queen on g3 is not good, and combine this bishop, which is applying pressure on the g2 pawn. So queen h3 was played, and now knight to d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and now we will see this power of this bishop and this bishop combined, and now rook g8, and there is going to be a really crushing attack from black over here. So king h1 was played, and now rook to g8, just trying to exploit the fact that g2 is really weakness. And of course, rook g8 is a really nice move, because in the next move, Gary will go rook to g6 just to defend this pawn, and he maybe can double up on the next. Okay, so knight to d1 was played. White's trying to go knight to e3 and maybe create some counter play on the center or in the king side. Rook to g6 was played, just defending the e6 pawn and intending to double up to put more pressure on g2. So c3 was played, just kicking the bishop away. So bishop g7. Of course, you don't wanna go bishop f6 here and let white trade these bishops, because yeah, this bishop is nice on this diagonal, but you lost the bishop pair advantage, which you don't wanna do. So after bishop to g7, knight to e3 was played. So rook f8 is just staying away from any tricks from white. Bishop to g5 was played, and now h6 and bishop h4, and you can see that this bishop is not really happy. It has no good diagonals to stay on. So b5, Gary is trying to go b4 and weakening the d4 square, so the bishop can jump back into, and also controlling the c4 square, so the white knight can't really go there. So knight f1 was played, and now b4, just trying to create the hole in d4. C takes b4, c takes b4, and now after knight to e3, rook g8, you can see how much pressure on this pawn is. Bishop to g3 was played, and now bishop to d4, knight c4 was played, rook g7, queen h5, and now king h7, just making sure that the h6 pawn is defended, so this rook is free to move anywhere or anytime. Knight to e3 was played, like the white pieces is just shuffling back and forward. The white pieces have really pretty much no play. Queen b5 was played, just putting pressure on the d3 pawn. Rook to d2 was played, and after a6, which is a silent move by Gary over here, after queen h3 and h5, you can see, of course, black can take on h5, because after rook to h6, then the queen is trapped. The queen only square is to go to e2 or something, but this will drop the bishop, because the h pawn is pinned thanks to this rook on h6. White can't really take on h5, so rook e2 was played, and now h4, like forcing white to take on h4. But white says no thank you and goes bishop to e1. You can see that the white pieces really white. The white pieces have no plan and really is just shuffling his pieces back and forward. And now after bishop takes e3, queen takes e3, queen c6. So we can see how much this is a weakness. Of course, Gary trades over here because he's seeing forward that then after the rook takes, after queen c6, putting pressure on g2, but also there is a queen c1 threat, which white can't stop both basically. So after queen takes e3, queen to c6 was played, queen h3, queen c1, just trying to put as much pressure on the white pieces. Queen takes h4, now was played, and now rook to e2, queen d1, and now after queen f2, of course, the pawn on g2 was lost. Rook takes g2 was played, queen takes g2, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, and after queen a2, black is guaranteeing to win b3, and with those two passed pawns, black is going to win the game. Rook to e2 was played, rook g6, and yeah, the rest of the game is pretty straightforward. Like black is just making a pass pawn on the queen side, and there is pretty much no play, so the white piece is resigned, because after rook g2, king f3, sorry. Then after let's just say black just trades, maybe goes queen d5, winning the rook, or maybe even just a2, and black should be winning easily. So in the last position, and I know we have done 5 positions as we promised on the title of the video, but like take this position as an homework, like from your strategical play and from your strategical understanding of this video, mainly of the position 4 and 5. So if you haven't done them or really understood them, try to repeat the video and understand them well. Here it's black to move, and let me know what plan should black play in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.